All right, guys, we are back with another crowd favorite. This is Corey Ivey's Lemon Twist truck, and I'm sure you guys have seen it in here and out of here on numerous occasions over the last, 10 years, but this time it's back for a good reason, is that it's got a brand new engine as well as a bunch of other upgrades. Corey has owned this truck for as long as I've known him, and it's been through so many different iterations. It's been through stock chassis, no limit subframe, and no limit rear trailing arm kit, and now it's on an Apex Predator chassis. It's had a couple different engines now, a couple different transmissions. And anyways, let's just take a minute to dive in real quick and we'll talk about some of the improvements that we've made along with Corey this time around. So if we go all the way back to roughly 2015 or 16, it was my first autocross ever in my yellow and white truck. It was probably the summer that I finished it and I took it to LS Fest and I met Chuck and Corey Ivey in the parking lot of our hotel. And I met them just simply because I was walking circles around this truck in the parking lot. And at the time, it was a stock chassis, and I think it had Ride Tech components, and it had 20-inch versions of these Forgeline wheels on it. And since then, there's been a number of transmissions in this truck, and just a whole learning curve about what it takes to make a truck fast on an autocross course. And Corey has always been one of the early innovators of upcoming trend or upcoming technology in his truck. And where we've landed now is with a brand new LS3 engine that's got a bunch of upgrades done to it. And it still has the Bowler T56 Magnum with the ZR1 gear set in it. And what's new as of last year was the Apex Predator from Finch chassis. So all of those upgrades have made this truck just really a staple in the autocross truck community. And it's just been a favorite of the entire community and has always been historically fast. So now that he's got another 125, 150 horsepower, he should stay on top as always. So anyways, let's just turn around and we'll look at some of the stuff that's been done in the engine compartment first. Okay, so this time in the shop, we put this brand new GM Performance. This was a 430 horsepower like crate LS3, and Corey actually won this at one of the truck events that he was at. Gandrud Chevrolet was raffling an engine, and he was lucky enough to win that engine. And honestly, the timing was just right. He had spent 10 years on that 6-liter that was in this truck, and it was fine, but it had gotten 10 years of just simply abuse. I mean, not a lot of street miles, just simply racing. So that and being down on power comparatively to the rest of the crowd, it was definitely time for an engine. So what we did is when he got word that he was getting this crate engine, we got it shipped here to the shop, and then we pulled the cylinder heads. And then Corey has actually introduced us to Al at Custom Machine Performance, our CMP engines out of California. Al has been a big asset. He has helped us really measure and take a dimension of a lot of things and figure out how far we wanted to go with milling the cylinder heads, what head gaskets to use, and how much porting to do on the heads themselves. So what we did is we measured the amount of piston stick out of the block. And what we've learned from Al, and I also talked to Don Hardy about this, and he told me that this is also a common thing that you see with a lot of GM crate engines or crate engines in general that are mass produced, is that the decking or the deck height bank to bank can vary quite a bit. So on Corey's engine, there was quite a bit of difference from bank to bank in the amount of piston that stuck out of the hole. So the way we combated that was to use a different thickness head gasket from bank to bank. So we've roughly got the combustion chambers, or not combustion chambers, but the compression or whatever in the cylinders the same. And then Al at CMP did all the porting and milling of the cylinder heads, but it's a custom cam that Al helped us spec. And then we did an adjustable timing set. We did a Melling 10296, I believe it was, oil pump, which is actually the high volume and high pressure pump. And the reason for that is that we are running a really big external engine oil cooler. So with that extra capacity and the amount of lines that it takes, or the length of line that it takes, those dash 10s to plumb that oil, we wanted more volume in that pump. So new pump, new timing set, cylinder heads being machined, a camshaft, and then he did the carbon PTR intake manifold. That's about all the upgrades that have happened to the engine this time. He did step up to a little more high end of a clutch. We did the Tilton ST246 organic discs, twin disc kit in this. We had to fabricate a new air intake since the intake manifold is different. And then we put one of our Holley mid-mount accessory drive systems on. And the reason why I say one of our systems on there is because we don't buy every little component from Holley. We like to upgrade the alternator and the power steering pump from other companies. So what we've done is we use bits and pieces from Holley, and then we use a custom spec turn 1 pump that is more high output, and it's set up for the amount of RPM that this engine will turn. And the same with the alternator, it's pulleyed for his 7,400 or 7,500 RPM that he'll turn here. And so we'll keep the alternator and the pumps alive for a long time, as in comparison to like the factory stuff that would come from Holley on that accessory drive or with the accessory drive kit. So other than that, we've had to just move around a couple things. We replumbed his Mighty Mouse catch can, and we did it just straight to atmosphere this time versus previous times where we did it as a PCV system. One of the other things you're going to see on the intake manifold is a kit that we're starting to develop where we remote mount a map sensor to the side of the intake manifold. These intake manifolds are amazing. They make good power. They're beautiful, but the location of the map sensor is inconvenient if you ever try to change it. So we're trying to develop a bracket and mount and fitting and hose system to put the map sensor on the outside so that if you're at a race and you have some unexpected failure of a map sensor, you can simply unbolt it and replace it without A, taking your engine apart, or B, burning the crap out of your arms. And then another thing that I love that we've been using now on quite a few of these builds is a radium fuel rail mounted pressure regulator. These are amazing for tidying up the plumbing on the fuel system, and it's so easy to adjust. We simply just jump in the truck, look at what the pressure is, and give a couple clicks on the top of that fuel pressure regulator. So it's A, easy to mount, and B, very easy to adjust. So that's a new thing that got added to this truck. And you know, when a lot of us go racing, we like to have spare bits and pieces in our trailers, and they make a replacement or like a rebuild kit for that regulator that's literally like $15. So it was really nice to be able to buy an extra and keep it in his box of spares. Another thing that we did this year was make more room for compression travel in his front suspension and in the engine bay. These are actually the first set of Fiber Forge's carbon fiber inner fenders that we ever got. And I honestly think that they're a little bit different shape in contrast to the newer ones that we've been using over the last couple years. Originally, we had set these up to use the fender mounted hood hinges. And so we were restricted on how high that the inner fender could be mounted. And so with Corey's ride height, he was getting his tire into this section of the inner fender. So what Dylan and I did was we moved the back of these inner fenders up, what Dylan, like 2 inches, 2-3 inches, a lot. So we trimmed out a lot more of the inner portion or the inner structure of the fender, and it's given him a lot more room. Another thing that we had noticed over the years past, or last year, is that the shock stroke that was on the front of this suspension was almost hitting internal bump on the shock at the same time that the lower control arm was hitting its rubber bump. So what we did is Dylan and I got in and we fabricated a taller upper coilover mount to allow more stroke of the coilover, and that way we're not entering or getting near the internal bump of the shock when he is at bump on the control arms. So beyond all this stuff, we did add or change things in the interior and in the bed of the truck. So let's real quick go into the interior first. I'm gonna jump in this video real quick just to plug some of our merchandise if you guys aren't familiar with it. If you're a fan of Ray, this is my favorite shirt we've ever done. This shirt is a Ray shirt. It's got our rendering by Casey Harris on the back. I love this shirt. There's not a ton of these left, so you better grab one while we got them. This is the MGD shirt we've had for a few months now. We have some of these left in stock. And then we just restocked the Spirit and Speed shirt. This has been a fan favorite for quite a while. It's got the Evil Knievel vibe on the back and then My Race helmet on the front. All of these are printed on Comfort Color Heavyweights, which are everybody's favorite t-shirt. And then we also have tons of t-shirts, mugs, socks, cups, thermoses, all that. So anyways, check it out on the website. Thanks a lot. So for the longest time, Corey has had Dakota digital gauges in this, which have been pretty good until the point he wanted to start monitoring or start viewing more data. One of those things that we did last year was that we added a oil temperature sender, and the Holley could at least data log or see oil temperature. And we use that temperature to cycle on a set of fans that are on the oil cooler itself. But what he was blind to on his gauges was air fuel, oil temperature, and any other parameter that just a factory set of gauges or a factory style set of gauges was lacking. So this year we partnered up with Holley, and Holley helped him with one of their Pro Dashes. This is the smaller Pro Dash, but honestly, the other ones are so large, I think it's a little bit unnecessary from time to time. So this is the one they call the 6.86 inch Pro Dash. So this one has a progressive shift light that you can program, as well as 4 warning indicators or indicators in general. We're using 3 of those indicators for left and right turn signal, and then a blue one for a bright indicator. And then he does have the progressive tack that's on there. And honestly, they give you so many like pre-calibrated gauges that there's tons of options, but you could do a custom display creator or do some graphic design work to these gauges to make them more personalized. For time's sake, I've simply gone in here and picked my favorite gauge and then just calibrated them with all the bits of information that I want to see or that I would want Corey to pay any attention to. But as with any good dash, it's only as good as what you can see with your eyes. So a lot of times when you're racing, you're absolutely not looking. So we've calibrated every one of these gauges to have a warning or an alarm state. So if the engine oil temperature is getting too hot, if the coolant is getting too hot, if air fuels get out of a safe parameter, they can actually flash red. And so really at that point, all that Corey has to pay attention to is if he sees an alert or a flash from the dash out of the corner of his eye. So I love that. And with my yellow and white truck, that's how we set it up. The only time that I need to be concerned with looking at the dash is if I saw something flashing at me. So it allows him to pay more attention to driving. So the way that we installed his Pro Dash is we got together with Revision Raceworks, and they 3D print or resin print these dashes. And honestly, I'm very impressed with the quality of this piece. Every hole lined up dead perfect, and the gauge is lined up dead perfect. Even the font that they print is crisp and looks good like a factory gauge would. Now, they do come raw plastic, and they have a bit of texture from the print, so you do have to do a bit of body work. And we actually worked with Kevin, one of our local body guys, to get this one dialed in. And what he did was he sanded, primed, sanded, and then painted this thing with a nice satin black. And then we came back and masked the outer portion and painted it in a chrome spray paint to try to make it look more original. And it matches pretty well with some of the original colors of the controls. So anyways, this was a huge improvement. He's had the Holley Terminator X Max for a long time. Maybe 3 years, a long time, like 3 years now, and it's worked perfect. Everything is really great, but at least now he has a lot more information to be able to see in front of him. So that was the interior upgrades. I also think that we're about to ditch the seat bracket and seats and go with much lighter versions. So that stuff's probably to come in another couple months or so. Another simple change that Corey made to the back of this truck was the way that he fills the fuel into the fuel tank. Standard practice in years past was always just a simple fuel fill that went in the bed floor, but Corey's trying to change up the look of the bed wood and the strips and all that stuff. So what he also wanted to do was make it a little more convenient to fill the fuel now that he's getting rid of the fill in the floor. And so this is a product that we sell on our website and that we fabricate. Now we have the fuel tank vent canisters made for us by another company, but this is something that we make in-house. So what this does is it allows your tank to vent while the pump is running or while the truck is parked. It can let the gases expand and that vapor to come out into this canister. So this is actually a dual chamber canister. So if you bought this, you would be able to vent your rear end housing and the fuel tank into these. And then we do sell these with charcoal pellets in it, and they've got a filtered fitting so none of that sediment or debris can come back into those components. So one improvement that's made in this venting system over what was there is simply the height of the venting. When you're racing specifically, you want to try to keep this as high as you can and it still be tasteful. We were using the too much canisters and they're great, but we had them mounted right to the bottom of the bed floor, which is nearly only 1 inch above the height of the fuel tank itself. So in any like high G cornering, liquid fuel could get into that hose and fill that canister. And if it fills to the capacity of canister, then it will overflow out the bottom of the vent. So from time to time, that vent could get full of fuel. So now with the additional 3 inches of height on this, we think that it will be able to keep all the liquid fuel out of that canister. But again, if it does, it's higher, so it can run the fuel right back into the tank through that vent hose. Another thing that's cool about this vent, or excuse me, this fuel fill, is the way that it vents during filling. So it's the same as like any modern car where it's got a very large vent hose that's plumbed into it. So Dylan and I weld a 1/2 inch barb to the back side of this fill. And so we've added a 1/2 inch hose fitting to the tank as well. So when you put the fuel pump nozzle into the fuel fill, it can pump air out of the tank at the same rate that you're pumping fuel into the tank. So the beauty of these is that you can really put the fuel nozzle in, click it to full, and walk away. And it will evacuate air fast enough to be able to fill on high. Whereas a lot of other fuel fills in the hot rod industry do not allow that. So this was kind of a modification or an improvement just for convenience sake. So anyways, this is one of the things that we did. And now that it's gonna go back to Corey and Chuck are gonna redo some of the bedwood, restain it. They're gonna surface all these boards again and restain them and put this back together all nice and tidy. So we did keep the too much canisters on the passenger rear of the bed, and both of those are now hooked to individual vents on the rear end housing. So same with the fuel tanks, you can get liquid gear oil into the hose, and that gear oil is heavy enough to where if it gets in the hose and it lays in the bottom of the hose, it would take quite a bit of pressure in the housing to push that gear oil all the way into the canister. And what that can do is potentially blow oil past the seals in the rear end housing itself. So the way we do it is we put two vent fittings in the rear end housing, and then we run an individual hose to each filter. So you could do that if you guys wanted to with one of these dual canisters that we sell as well. So at least now it will keep the pressure in the rear end housing to none. So anyways, that's everything that happened in the back of the truck. Does that dyno show what the barometric pressure is right now?
To make sure that the connection on this map sensor is plugged in all the way. He said he's getting a weird reading out of it, so you just want to double check.
So all we did is just add a little under 2 degrees of timing to it, and it lost, what, 25 horsepower?
Yeah, 40.
Yeah, so we're gonna go back the other way. Okay guys, we are doing full after full right now. We've done about 4 or 5 fulls. And all we're trying to do is just kind of get all our settings correct. We initially had the wrong map sensor selected, so we jumped back to the correct map sensor, and we're kind of working our way through the tuning from there. Right now, we've kind of set around 500 to the tires, and now we're going to start introducing a little more timing and see if that helps pick up any power. So now what we're on is we're going to go 1.5 degrees below where we were the previous run. So we'll see if we can bring back power. Yeah, so we've got like some kind of weird anomaly where if we're manipulating the timing table much at all, it really swings the horsepower low. So we're trying to solve that, kind of going back to our first doable folder that we had. Made 5 10s and then try to back it up again with our current timing. Changed the map sensor setting and it dropped it 40, 50 horsepower. This sounds incredible. Like this is going to be the best one yet. And then you look and it's 50 pounds or 50 horsepower less than what it was before. Guess it pays to have all these parts. Somebody breaks something, you already have it on the shelf. What we found, guys, is that we took the intake manifold off, or took the intake manifold apart, and sure enough, it did have the really long runners in it. So they have 3 different lengths. They have like super short, medium, and then long. And he had the long runners in it, so that would make more low-end power and not peak power. So the only ones that we had at the shop were the medium, so we'll see if that helps anything.
We're leaking something.
That's not good. Seeing such a power variation, I wonder if it's like temporarily kicking the compressor on.
Yeah.
Is fire. The compressor is red hot. Yeah, the only thing I can think of is that it's trying to kick the compressor on or something. I have all the HVAC off. Like the runs that it made 510 are probably with the compressor off.
Yeah.
That's why it was like so all over the place. Like it would be okay and then not okay. So we'll just have to figure out why in the world it would try to kick the compressor on. Bit of a stressful morning, mid-afternoon with Corey's truck. It was making power and then not making power, like very erratically jumping like 30 horsepower from pole to pole. And we were changing maps, we were changing map sensors, we were changing timing, putting timing in, taking timing out, and nothing was really logical. And we would trim the fuel for, you know, like red line, high load, and then it would trim it the other way and then make more power. So we kind of chasing our tails back and forth. And so we also noticed that this thing was not carrying power past like 6,400. And I thought, well, we'll take the intake manifold apart and we'll see what runners are in it, because Corey bought that used intake manifold. So it had long runners in it. We put the medium runners in it. I made a pull and it definitely carried power a little bit farther, made like another 6 or 7 horsepower. Still not doing like what I thought it should do. And what I noticed when I let off the gas and push the clutch, I always go back after a pull and just kind of like give it a couple blips, make sure the engine sounds clean. And it sounded very like hesitant, like it wouldn't rev. And I let off the gas and the engine died. I thought that Dylan had pulled me down with the dyno, but he didn't because I had it in neutral. And so I was like, well, that's odd. Maybe it was the dyno. Kind of checked everything, looked at the data log, made another pull, and when we hit 7,000, same thing. I pull the clutch in and the motor just dies. And I'm like, ooh, that is not good. Let it cool down just a little bit, try to crank it. As soon as I bump the starter, I can tell the motor is like maybe seized or something. So at this point, I'm full freak out. Look underneath the truck and Dylan's like, we got oil under here. There's oil under there, but it's not like engine oil. So anyways, long story short, AC compressor seized up on us. And I don't have the HVAC system on. I looked at my outputs for I/O, and I've got it programmed right to where when I am at full throttle or high load, it removes the ground from the AC compressor relay. So we've literally just got a compressor from Holly that got a weird clutch in it or something. Anyways, it seized. So we're gonna go back to the shop, we're gonna change the compressor, check out everything, and then we'll be back to the dyno hopefully another day or so. So anyways, that's the update. Huge freak out moment, but we're totally fine. Engine's fine, everything's fine. Everything's fine, everything's fine. So this is definitely the culprit. As you can see, we've windowed the AC compressor, which is a totally new thing for me. I'm about to hop in the software. Like I said, I have a cutout relay or a cutout circuit programmed in the Holly to where it would deactivate or remove the ground from the coil side of the AC compressor relay under full throttle. So I just need to like double check and make sure that something weird wasn't happening with that I/O throughout the calibration changes. So it may be totally our fault that the compressor was coming on at full throttle instead of staying off at full throttle. But anyways, this is an easy fix. And yeah, so we'll get this changed out, check the calibration, and get right back to the dyno. So it ended up making 505 horsepower to the tires. I'm not sure what the torque number was. We'll have to look at that. But honestly, I'm really, really happy with that. This is a brand new engine, and over 500 of the tires is honestly great in my opinion. All the other like heads cam LS3s we've ever done, so like Hatchet, well, all the other ones, and then Old Yeller, they've all made anywhere between like 475 to 490. So this one has a good cam head. I mean, all the extra work I think paid off. And keep in mind it's a really fresh motor, so I mean once it breaks in a little bit more, it might free up a couple horsepower. It's also almost 50% humidity today, so a different environment would make more power. But all in all, like 500 wheel is 120 more than you used to make. So altogether, huge win. All right, guys, so that's gonna wrap up Level 7's portion of Lemon Twist version 5000 or whatever it is. Thank you guys so much for following along yesterday and watching us fight through some of our struggles on the dyno. We brought the truck back here yesterday after 23 or 24 dyno pulls, and sure enough, that AC compressor had completely grenaded. And then I went through while Dylan was changing the AC compressor and looked at all my calibration stuff. The AC shutdown in the software was doing exactly what it's supposed to. Even if the HVAC system was on, it was removing the ground circuit from the compressor clutch relay above 75% throttle. So the AC compressor was shutting off at full throttle, even if I would have had the HVAC system on, which it was off. So I'm really rest assuring that nothing was wrong or nothing went awry, other than just a faulty AC compressor. So once that was swapped out, we went back this morning, and laid down easy 505 horsepower pretty consecutively. Everything went really, really good. This engine's gonna be such an improvement for Corey. Another 100+ horsepower is gonna be a riot. So thank you guys so much for following along on this project. Thank you, Corey. As always, we love you, brother. Catch you all on the next one.